And so ended the golden age of man, a perfect time where humanity lived without care or worry. Never growing old, they would live off the wild fruits of the land, enjoying all that nature had to offer. But with old age escaping from Pandora's box, their time on earth had come to an end. Next would come the age of silver, and then the age of bronze, where man would become arrogant, failing to worship the gods, and forging weapons to wage war on each other. Vicious and cruel, man would draw the anger of Zeus, who was so appalled by man's lust for war, would decide that humanity deserved nothing more than to be completely wiped from the earth. The only feasible option he saw to do this was to unleash a great flood upon the world. And so he asked his brother Poseidon to gather all his strength and strike his trident upon the deepest depths of the ocean. The wave created was so powerful that it would eclipse the tallest mountains, crashing down upon the cities of man below. Rains would pour from the heavens and winds would strike the water until it consumed all the eye could see. Those who survived would soon succumb to starvation, until finally all dry land had disappeared. There would be only two survivors, Pyrrha, the daughter of Pandora, and Deucalion, the son of Prometheus. They had been forewarned by Prometheus that a great flood was coming, and so had built a ship to survive the coming destruction. Their little boat would survive the ravages of Poseidon's great storm, drifting alone in the vast oceans, while they mourned for their fallen kin. They would soon drift towards Mount Parnassus, the peak of which remained the only place the oceans had not consumed. Believing his job was done, Zeus would command the rains to cease and for the waters to recede, with the earth becoming calm once again. But although the earth was now still, it was devoid of human life. Deucalion and Pyrrha would ask the gods how they could rebuild humanity, with the Titans being sent to answer their prayers. To bring back their fellow man, Themis instructed that they each travel along the mountain, throwing stones behind their backs as they went. Day after day and night after night, they would each throw stones behind them, with those thrown by Deucalion growing into men, and those by Pyrrha into women. And so it was that humanity was born once again. With the crimes of their ancestors washed away, they were granted a second chance, able to choose a path of their own making. Only time would tell if they would be as brutal and destructive as those that had preceded them, but this time humanity would be protected, for on Mount Parnassus, Deucalion had found a gift. Zeus, the king of the gods, ruled from his throne on Mount Olympus, with his symbols of the thunderbolt and eagle becoming omens to humanity. Zeus was responsible for all weather changes, from thunderstorms to raging blizzards, depending on his mood. The Greeks considered Zeus the greatest of the gods, with those who bowed before him receiving good fortune, and those who dared to defy him subjected to terrible punishments. Having now taken control of the world, Zeus would look for a wife to rule by his side. But the king of the gods was famous for his infidelity, with him having no less than 7 wives during his reign. The first to marry Zeus would be the nymph Metis, the goddess of wisdom, with her soon falling pregnant with his child. But Zeus had been warned by his grandparents, Gaia and Uranus, that Metis was destined to bear him a treacherous son, who would one day take his throne. Seeing no other choice, Zeus would swallow Metis before she gave birth, in the hopes of avoiding the prophecy. But after he did so, Zeus would begin to suffer a terrible headache, with the pain becoming so intense that he would ask for his head to be split open with an axe. From the gap in his forehead would spring the child Metis had been carrying inside her, a daughter named Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom, fully grown and ready to take her place as one of the Olympians. Zeus's second wife would be his aunt Themis, titan of justice and law, who had betrayed her own kind to side with the gods during their war with the Titans. The pair would have only 3 children together, however. They would come to garner great power over the mortal world, known as the Three Fates. These sisters would become the goddesses of destiny, spinning a thread of life that would determine the road each individual soul would take. The youngest sister would be known as Cloto, the spinner, as she was responsible for spinning the thread of each human life as they were born. Controlling if and when a soul was created, it was only through Cloto's great power that a new life would come to be. Her older sister, Lachesis, the Allottor, would determine the fate of each person. Using her rod, Lachesis would measure the length and nature of every thread spun upon Cloto's spindle, and in doing so would plot out the duration, as well as every major event of each human life. And finally, the eldest and most feared sister would be known as Atropos, unturning. When a mortal's allotted time on earth had come to an end, Atropos would her great shears and end their life by cutting through the thread. Zeus would go on to have many more wives, fathering numerous gods and goddesses alike. But for his seventh and final wife, he would take his older sister Hera, the goddess of women and marriage, with Zeus having finally found a queen to rule by his side. But even after his marriage to Hera, Zeus' lustful eye would extend beyond the heavens, with the king of the gods continuing to pursue other women. Fathering countless children, Zeus would be related to nearly every god and hero, with him often disguising himself to gain the affection of women who drew his eye. One such woman, Europa, was the princess of the city of Tyre and sister to the famous hero Cadmus. One day, as she was picking flowers by the coast, Europa would draw the attention of Zeus, with the king of the gods deciding to claim her as his own. To hide his infidelity from Hera, Zeus decided to transform himself into a magnificent white bull before traveling down to Earth. Upon seeing the bull, Europa would be mesmerized by its beauty and so decided to climb upon its back. The moment she mounted him, however, Zeus would set out at full speed, sprinting straight into the sea. Screaming in terror, Europa desperately to the bull's horns as it ran across the vast ocean. To reassure the terrified princess, Zeus would decide to reveal his true identity, telling her he was not merely a beast, but instead the king of the gods. The two would eventually arrive at Crete, the island on which Zeus was hidden as a child, where she would bear him many children. Their offspring would eventually become some of the most renowned men of Greece, with Minos, the king of Crete and owner of the legendary Minotaur, being amongst them. To commemorate his love for Europa, Zeus would name the continent where they stood Europe in her honor, and would recreate the image of the white bull in the stars, which would become known as the constellation Taurus.